I've never killed anybody in my life, but I will kill you because you're with me.
Yeah, I would set up hotel rooms for freak-offs. I would sometimes buy drugs for Diddy.
I will kill you, and I will hide you, and I will cut you up and put you in the dirt. Right.
She was supposed to be just another girlfriend in Sean Diddy Combs' glittering, untouchable world. Lavish gifts, private jets, champagne nights, everything seemed perfect on the outside. But when Jane Doe took the stand, what she revealed shattered the carefully polished image of one of hip-hop's most powerful men. Behind closed doors, she says, the nights weren't filled with romance, they were filled with fear. Intimate hotel nights that spiraled into something darker, something she called freak-offs. It wasn't just about control. It was about power, surveillance, and humiliation. And the most disturbing part? Diddy didn't just allow it. She claims he orchestrated it, watched it, demanded it. And that's just the beginning.
She isn't a household name. She never chased fame. In fact, most people had never heard of her until her name, hidden under the label Jane Doe, appeared in legal documents tied to one of the most explosive celebrity cases of the decade. Jane was young, soft-spoken, and completely outside the spotlight when she first crossed paths with Diddy. Sources say she met him through mutual connections at a high-end industry event, just another night in the glamorous maze of celebrity circles, but to her, it felt like a dream. The invitations started coming fast: private parties, luxurious dinners, promises of travel, and at the center of it all was a man who knew how to make someone feel chosen. But what began as a whirlwind romance quickly turned into something much harder to define. Behind the luxury, there were strange boundaries, rules, expectations. Slowly, Jane found herself pulled deeper into Diddy's world, a place where silence was rewarded, and questioning too much could mean being cut off entirely. And that's when the so-called hotel nights began.
At first, Jane thought they were getaways, quick escapes from the chaos of Diddy's public life. He'd call it alone time, something just for the two of them. But when they checked into luxury hotels, she quickly realized this wasn't about romance. In her testimony, Jane described nights that became known in Combs' inner circle as freak-offs. According to her, these weren't just parties. They were orchestrated events, carefully arranged by Diddy himself. Other men would be present. Jane was allegedly pressured into engaging in intimate acts with them, while Diddy sat back and watched. She said no cameras were allowed, only eyes. His eyes, always watching. Jane told the court that she didn't know who these men were. Sometimes they were strangers, sometimes they were people with influence, but the message was always the same: say yes or face the consequences. And what made it worse? Diddy never joined in. He just watched, silently, carefully. As if it wasn't about pleasure, it was about control. She claims she felt like a puppet in a twisted performance. And while no one forced her in the traditional sense, she made it clear that saying no felt impossible. There was always the fear of losing everything: his support, his protection, and the lifestyle she'd come to rely on. But just when she thought she understood the game, the rules changed again. Jane says it always started with a promise. A weekend in Paris, a private island escape. Time alone, just the two of them. Finally, something real. And every time, she believed it, because he made her believe it. But the promises never came true, not once. Instead of sipping wine on a yacht or walking along a quiet beach, she'd find herself back in a high-rise hotel suite, lights dimmed, the air tense. The same script would play out again. New faces, new requests, and Diddy sitting in the corner, emotionless. She began to realize the trips were never meant to be romantic. They were setups, disguises. Each getaway was a trap dressed up in luxury. And the most devastating part? Even after it all, he'd wrap his arms around her and say, "You know I got you, right?" That simple line, soft, caring, almost convincing, was all it took to make her stay just a little longer. She wasn't just being manipulated physically. This was emotional control at its most sophisticated. Every broken promise came with just enough sweetness to keep her hanging on, just enough affection to blur the line between love and power. But soon, even affection would become part of the manipulation. And that's when Jane says the emotional games went even deeper. Even as the nights got darker and the demands more twisted, Jane couldn't walk away. Why? Because part of her still believed it was love.
In court, she admitted something most people wouldn't dare say out loud. She still had feelings for him, even after everything, even after the manipulation, the pressure, the fear. Some part of her stayed emotionally tied to him. And maybe that's what made it so dangerous. Combs didn't just use money or power to keep her close. He used affection, kindness, little moments that felt so real they canceled out the chaos. One minute he'd fly into a rage, and the next he was buying her jewelry or flying her to Miami. It created a cycle, trauma followed by reward that she couldn't seem to escape. Even after his arrest, the connection didn't fully break. Jane testified that Diddy continued to support her financially, rent, bills, even day-to-day expenses. He made sure she was taken care of, even from behind closed doors. But it wasn't just about money. It was about loyalty, control, and maybe guilt. And then came the most unexpected twist. Diddy's defense team was the one paying for her lawyers. To the public, it made no sense. Why would his legal team be funding someone testifying against him? But to those watching closely, it raised darker questions. Was this a move to keep her quiet, or to manage what she said? Whatever the reason, it didn't stop Jane from dropping one of the trial's most jaw-dropping revelations.
It was the kind of detail that made everyone in the courtroom pause. Jane testified that the legal team representing her, her own lawyers, were being paid by Sean Diddy Combs' defense team. To the average person, that sounds impossible, confusing at best, unethical at worst, but legally. It's a gray area, and in this case, it was a signal of something deeper at play. On paper, it may have been spun as support, helping out someone close to him during a difficult time, but in the courtroom, it raised an obvious question. Was this hush money with a different label? Because if your lawyers are paid by the same man you're testifying against, how much of your story can really be trusted? Diddy's team stayed quiet about the arrangement, but legal experts watching the case say it could have been a strategic move, one that allowed them early insight into what Jane might say on the stand, or even a way to keep her connected, dependent, and conflicted. And while all eyes were on Jane, there was another surprising presence in the room, Cassie's attorney. The same woman who represented Cassie Ventura in her explosive lawsuit against Diddy was sitting just rows away, closely watching every word of Jane's testimony. That's when it became clear. This wasn't just about one relationship or one witness. This was part of a much bigger, tangled legal war, with Combs in the center, and women from different corners of his past finally stepping forward. And yet, it wasn't just what Jane said that shocked the courtroom. It was how people reacted to her. Jane's words hit hard, but the reaction in the courtroom said even more than the testimony itself. As she spoke, jurors watched her closely. Some leaned forward, others stayed expressionless. But when she revealed that she had been posting content on OnlyFans after her involvement with Diddy, something shifted in the room. Suddenly, the unspoken question was in the air. Was she speaking her truth or chasing attention? Body language experts watching the case later noted a distinct change in tone among the jury, raised eyebrows, side glances, small, almost imperceptible gestures that suggested doubt. It wasn't just about what Jane had done, it was about how the defense might use it. Diddy's lawyers knew how to twist the narrative. They didn't need to prove she was lying, they just needed to make people wonder. Was her testimony about justice or revenge? Was she trying to hold him accountable or make herself relevant? The OnlyFans detail, while legally irrelevant, gave the defense an easy angle. They didn't have to attack her story directly. They just had to paint her as someone with something to gain. But even with those doubts, there was something undeniable in her voice, a tremble that couldn't be faked, a tension that no script could replicate. And as the defense prepared to strike, they were ready to push one message hard: Jane couldn't be trusted. From the moment Jane stepped off the witness stand, the defense team went into full calculation mode. They didn't rush to attack her testimony head-on. Instead, they began laying quiet groundwork, planting seeds of doubt, without ever needing to say she was lying. Their strategy? Undermine, not confront. Make the jury question why Jane came forward, not just what she said. They pointed to her financial ties to Diddy, even after his arrest. The fact that she still accepted his money, the lawyer payments, the continued contact. To the defense,
These weren't just details, they were lifelines, evidence that Jane wasn't a victim. She was an insider, still on the payroll, still emotionally tethered to a man she claimed to fear. And then came the character framing. Her online presence, including the OnlyFans account, became subtle talking points, not overtly shamed, but strategically highlighted. It wasn't about what she did, it was about how a jury might see her because of it. In this version of the story, Jane wasn't coerced, she was complicit. Not broken down, but bought in. Not afraid of Diddy, but using him. It's a classic tactic: flip the narrative. Turn accusers into opportunists, and cast reasonable doubt like a shadow over everything they say. But for every jab the defense threw, Jane's story stayed in the air, uncomfortable, unsettling, and impossible to ignore. And with her words added to a growing chorus of women stepping forward, one question remained. Was this the final crack in Diddy's empire? The weight of Jane's testimony can't be underestimated. This isn't just one woman telling her story. It's part of a pattern that's been slowly unraveling around Sean "Diddy" Combs for years. Rumors, allegations, and now courtroom accounts that paint a very different picture from the public persona. Jane's detailed description of those hotel nights, the emotional manipulation, and the tangled legal strategies all add fuel to a fire that's been burning quietly in the background. If the jury finds her credible, this could be a turning point, a moment that shifts the entire narrative and brings long-hidden truths into the spotlight. But even beyond the courtroom, the implications ripple out. How will this affect Diddy's empire, his partnerships, and his standing in the industry? More than that, what does it say about power dynamics in celebrity culture? About the line between influence and exploitation? Jane's story forces us to ask uncomfortable questions and forces Diddy's defenders to respond under a spotlight that's only getting brighter. And as this chapter closes, one thing is clear: the story is far from over. Jane Doe's testimony isn't just another headline. It's a powerful glimpse behind the curtain of fame, power, and control. Whether everything she said is the full truth or just one side of a complex story, it's impossible to ignore the impact her words are already having. This case is more than a legal battle. It's a reflection of a culture where the powerful can sometimes bend reality to their will, and where those caught in the middle are left fighting to be heard. As the courtroom drama continues, one thing is certain: the world is watching, and the questions raised by Jane's story will keep echoing long after the trial ends. So, what do you think? Was Jane's testimony the turning point? Or just a chapter in a much bigger story? Drop your thoughts below, because this conversation is far from over.